The metaverse is emerging as the next big technology platform and promises to be the next frontier for human experiences on the internet. Into the Metaverse covers companies, technologies, and trends that are bringing these promises to life. Join creator and host Jonathan Ross-Friedman, founder and CEO of Super Social, as he interviews the brilliant minds that are building, shaping, and investing in the metaverse.
2023 has been a fascinating year. While it started with many in the media claiming that the metaverse is dead, builders are focusing on making the metaverse a reality, one step at a time. In 2024 promises to continue the trajectory for virtual worlds in 3D and an ecosystem around it to play an instrumental role in the transition of the internet from 2D to 3D. For this 2023 recap and 2024 predictions or, thoughts about the year, I am super delighted to get my host, my former co-host and friend, an all-around metaverse optimist, just like me, Matthew Kanterman. Until recently, Matthew was director of research at Roundhill, a thematic ETF fund known for launching the first metaverse-focused ETF. And prior to that, Matthew served as director of research at Bold Metaverse Research Partners, and before that, a senior analyst at Bloomberg Intelligence. In this episode today, we're going to go deep on the most important developments that you should remember from 2023 and what you should keep in mind for 2024. And we're going to wrap up with a little teeny tiny announcement related to Matthew's next role. And I can hint it involves these podcasts and Super Social. So as always, everything discussed on the pod is not a financial advice and aimed at educational and entertainment purposes. Matthew, super happy to welcome you again on the show for this season finale.
Super happy to be here, to be back on the podcast. I know I joined a few months ago when we talked about AI, but I think this is going to be a much broader, encompassing conversation. And as you alluded to, a nice, exciting announcement at the end. So you definitely have to stay tuned for that.
So Matthew, as always, alongside you and many others, I've been fortunate over the past 82 episode, maybe more by the time we're actually publishing this recording, and had the opportunity to talk to many incredible folks, investors, builders, thought leaders in the space, and trying to do the impossible, which is to create some sort of a consensus. And so my first question today, with everything that has happened during 2023, the way it started and the way it ends, as we conclude the year, has anything changed with your own definition of the metaverse?
For me personally, I think the answer is no. I think people like us have had this, yes, it's a broad definition of what the metaverse is, but I think that's important, right? We can't, I've said many times on our podcast, we can't be deterministic about the future path of technology. And the metaverse is a big example of that, right? When everyone thought the metaverse was a VR headset, when Zuckerberg was linking the two terms, or even he wasn't, but people were just linking them because of the relationship of what Facebook was doing and now Meta. My personal definition, I go back to when we spoke with from Epic Games, from the Unreal Engine, Mark Petit, and we talked. It's the internet enabled by real-time 3D, right? And I think that is one of the best definitions I've still heard today, because it doesn't necessarily predict anything. It doesn't specify. It's not deterministic. The longer Matthew Ball definition in his book, which I have sitting right beside me right now, still, the metaverse and how it will revolutionize everything. Fantastic read if you haven't read it. It says the same things in a similar vein. What we're describing is the shift of the internet, exactly as you said, to real-time 3D enabled experiences from static 2D ones. And so think of that how you will, but that is a long-term trend that I think is still in place and hasn't really shifted much since we started defining it in 2021. I think what's been most exciting for me in the last few years is, this is where we talk about those core technologies. We talk about VR, AR, mixed reality, and pieces that build the foundational pie of what the metaverse is. We've seen really good advancements in many aspects, the hardware layer, the software layer, the middleware layer, right? That's all come leaps and bounds with the advancements in AI, and I mentioned access devices. We keep getting closer and closer to having the core technological building blocks to evolve from these what I think, a good term used previously was these proto metaverse experiences that kind of evolved out of gaming to a truly persistent 3D internet.
And I think what I like about what you just said and picking up on Mark Petit's definition of an internet enabled by real-time 3D is keeping things simple. That's not to say that there is no incredible level of complexity in enabling that, right? When we talk about real-time internet in 3D, there's many things that come up in terms of how do we actually make that work with an internet that was not built for a real-time 3D interaction and environment. And a lot of those things I think are being, addressed by so many different companies, which we're going to dig in today. But alongside the technical side of things, there is also the human side of things, which is really the more instrumental piece that led me to decide to start Super Social in 2020, which is we now have a generation of about 2 billion people around the world under age 18 that for them interacting in real-time 3D is not just a form factor of playing a video game. It's really now the go-to mechanic of how they interact and socialize as human beings on the internet. And sure, it may well look like a toy because Roblox is the preeminent category leader and it is associated with young people. But my belief on a human behavior element is that we now have this first generation, let's call it the first 3D native generation of internet users, and they're going to continue and want to engage in a way that they are familiar with, just like you and I learned how to interact and communicate on the internet and on mobile applications. And I think when you look at that audience of people who were born after 2010, but also Gen Z, but especially young people born after 2010, their ability to interact in 3D real time is as native as it is for you and I to have started using Google when we were 18. And I think that's alongside the tech that you've mentioned, that is the other piece that is really fundamental, which I think many, many, many people are underestimating the implication that there is such a massive generation, a huge population around the world who, for them, this is the new native. This is the new normal, interacting in 3D real time. And that is going to make a major shift on what is going to be built over the next 10 years.
I just recorded a podcast today with Joseph Kim from Game Makers. We do this series called Pickles and Profits. So we dissect gaming companies and dive into what's going on in the financials and the stock prices, as well as the fundamentals of the company and how it impacts the gaming industry. And we covered Roblox today. And exactly what you're describing is the core tenet of the Roblox investment thesis. Is this a gaming platform or is this a burgeoning social network? And if you think it's the latter, the upside opportunities on the fundamentals are significant. The average Roblox DAO since 2020 has continued to spend roughly 2.5 hours per day on the platform. That hasn't gone down since COVID, which I thought it would. Most people thought it would, mean revert to some lower plateau that was above the pre-COVID level. Clearly did not. The DAO level kept going up. So what we're seeing is a shift in how, as you mentioned, particularly younger users, 80-90% of Roblox DAO is like under 21, maybe it's 22 because we're a year later than that stat came out, right? But it's significant portion of the user base of Roblox is young. They're significantly engaged in the platform, more so than pretty much any other application, social feature they're going to use. This is the future of social networking is built in 3D experiences. And that's what you're seeing on Roblox. And that's the human consumer behavior that's really, really promising. And you see it, especially with the younger generations, but I think you're going to see it adopted more and more by everyone, especially as virtual worlds get populated with more AI generated features that are going to make it feel more immersive and more full, as opposed to sometimes having, you log into a game lobby and there's no one there, it sucks, right? But, if it's full of AI, NPCs and more things to interact with, that makes it much more enticing and a better user experience that I think will help onboard the next billion users to the metaverse after those early adopters.
Yeah, and I think that to build on what you said, and by the way, Roblox maintained the daily average engagement time while more than doubling, almost actually almost tripling their daily active user base in a period of time of about 3 years or 3.5 years, which is phenomenal. And I think that in a way, and I'm kind of in the process of, probably writing something about it, but in a way, to me at least, Roblox is almost an MVP or prototype at scale of what the future of the internet might look like when we have a fully web-based environment in 3D, which is, I think, where we all want to go. And obviously people like Mark Petit and others who are aiming to build and are trying to build kind of interoperability and protocols that are going to enable the web to be a cohesive one environment in 3D. I want to ask the question though, why do you think it is important that we should have a real-time 3D enabled internet that is web-based and not just ones that are isolated? And instead of having one potentially metaverse, we will have a lot of kind of micro galaxies that together maybe comprise of a metaverse. But why is it so important that we have a unified, open, web-based 3D internet?
I mean, I think in general, an open internet is a powerful, it's a powerful socioeconomic tool, right? We've seen what happens when we enable these large corporate platforms to dominate, right? On mobile, Apple and Google dominate, and they're getting sued to death now. But, we did not put the rules in place to prevent these sorts of monopolies or duopolies being built. And we've seen the negative externalities it's had on so many things. I mean, Apple has killed numerous companies in the last 2 years because they've tried to be quote unquote more privacy centric in how they manage advertising for gaming. But in reality, they just don't like certain types of games and they wanted it to be a higher quality. So they killed tons of companies and cost tons of jobs and upended many lives because they were trying to do something that they wanted to do. And so I think having an open internet, open platforms, an open 3D internet, an open metaverse is important so we don't build up these big platforms that have all the control, and the control rests with the users, and this starts to become a political, Web3 argument, but there is merit to the idea of a user-controlled internet as opposed to one that's controlled by platforms. And we can't make the same mistakes we made in the late 2000s, early 2010s, when we let these big tech companies and cloud and mobile, create these huge oligopolies that are just, extract tons of economic rent from every facet of the economy.
That's a great springboard to kind of let's highlight some of the key developments that we feel 2023 have brought about, especially, in 2021, it was all about crypto and NFTs. 2022 was really all about the metaverse. 2023, we now have generative AI that jumped into the party. And so let's start laying out some of the key developments that we believe have really made a difference this year. And, as we talk through them, I think it's going to naturally evolve us into, okay, let's talk about 2024 and how do we think that play out, both on the optimist side and the pessimist, and see where we land. But let's kick off with 2023.
Yeah, I mean, one of the big things for 2023, I think, is actually happening like right now. We were just chatting about it briefly before we jumped on. And, I think we're seeing the evolution and the real coming out party for Epic's, broader metaverse strategy beyond Fortnite, right? I mean, Fortnite's been massively successful. The IP integrations, it's clearly a proto metaverse gaming experience, right? It checks all those boxes of that. But for Epic to be a true metaverse company, to really live up to the, the goals of Tim Sweeney and everyone that he works with, they want to be more than just Fortnite, right? And so launching UEFN, the UGC, arm of what they're doing, the Lego experience they just launched, the music one. This is really important because, we saw when they went back to OG Fortnite, that was the highest engagement event they ever did in the history of the company. So for them to, financially, for me, who's someone who's a numbers guy, for them to live up to the valuations they've received, even though they've come down in the secondary market, or to simply really drive their metaverse vision, they need these non-Fortnite BR experiences to be successful. They need a UGC platform to be successful. They need these other branded experiences to be successful. If not, they're just a gaming company. And what they're trying to do beyond Fortnite BR becomes really difficult at that point.
This is let's double click on Fortnite because I think it's an Epic, because I think it's such a loaded topic. And I have to say that at the moment, I have quite an evolved point of view on what Epic is trying to do with Fortnite Creative. Let's start with where I was, where it went to, and where I am today. And I'll pause there because I don't want to interrupt our 2023 with the 2024 predictions. Where I started, which was a GDC, when they announced UEFN, Fortnite Creative Economy 2.0, UEFN integration, Unreal Engine integration with diverse programming language, and the big announcement of 40% of net revenue from the Fortnite ecosystem will be paid to creators. Of course, it's more 16% net because 24% goes to Epic's own IP, maybe even more, but let's say 16%, which is still a lot of money. It's in the hundreds of millions of dollars of revenue to creators that were already on the platform. That was an incredibly optimistic time, and it felt that everyone were curious about, I was curious about what exactly this platform looks like, what can you do? And then very rapidly, within a matter of a few months, it became pretty clear that it is very raw and immature from a platform perspective. And I recount having multiple conversations during GDC 2023 where everyone saw the announcement and there were people who basically said, this is it, Roblox is dead. And I was like, you don't know what you're talking about. And that was in the optimist point of time where everyone thought it's a platform. Then it became clear you can't really save progression yet. There is no monetization. There is no economy. It's all engagement payouts, essentially. That is a small piece of the Roblox revenue for developers. And then a bunch of different challenges, which I'm certain, without knowing at 100%, I'm certain Epic is working on resolving and building, because I do believe they have a genuine desire to build a platform. But then what happened is I saw the announcement of Lego Fortnite. And what I realized that Epic's most successful properties are actually games that they build. Now, true, they have an incredible platform, incredible engine in terms of technical infrastructure. But when you look at Fortnite, the game, and the OG you mentioned, which is exploded again, the numbers of user count on Fortnite. And if you look at Lego, you really see that there is a real genuine strength of the company when it comes to first party IP, right? They have the racing game as well. And so that just makes me wonder, how can you be a world-class company that at the same time is trying to build world-class monetizing first-party games like Epic Battle Royale, Fortnite Battle Royale, Lego Fortnite, which just launched officially today? And how can you do that? And they would want to do more to take advantage of their technology, to take advantage of Fortnite. So how can they do that and build something that is a UGC proper, that anyone, anywhere, at any time can build, grow, and monetize a business? And so it makes it feel like there's a bit of a dissonance in terms of cohesive vision. And the bottom line that I'm trying to get to is that, which is I think there is a lack of cohesive vision. At least that's what I see. I don't think the ambition is not there. I think it is. But I think I still see these two distinct areas that Epic is trying to do at the same time, which is to compete with Roblox in terms of being a UGC platform for everyone and continuing to build these, world-class first-party games built on the infrastructure that they've created with Epic and Fortnite.
Yeah, and I think like the Lego is like you call it a second party game, right? It's it's work for hire effectively, right? Things that they make. When UEFN was announced and when we looked at kind of the details and what you couldn't do, as you mentioned the term before. This is clearly an MVP. This was a minimum viable product. This was not fully production ready when they announced it and even launched it, right? And it's still not. They have a long list of features that they know they need to add to make it feasible for developers to really build profitable businesses on UEFN. It's not there yet. Just like Roblox had to build these things over 20 years. So, I think we have to give it time. Without any inside knowledge at Epic whatsoever, I also can speculate with hindsight that because they did tons of layoffs more recently around non-core businesses, there may have been pressure internally, maybe from some of their large investors. You got to show us returns on what you've been working on, or you need to cut it. And maybe they had to rush this out faster than they wanted to because they might have been seeing pressure on the bottom line, which, Tim Sweeney admitted to. He admitted that some of these bets were not panning out and they had to cut and focus on what's profitable. And so, I wonder if there was also pressure to get this out faster so that, just to, kind of take some of that pressure off of some of these investments that he really wants to make. So I have no inside knowledge of the company at all. This is just speculation, but with the benefit of hindsight, 6 months later when they made these layoffs and everything, it does start to add up, particularly when they call out the lower profitability of UEFN as a reason for cutting so much other stuff. It's clear that this was not game time ready when they launched it.
Yeah, I think your definition or suggestion of looking at what they've launched as an MVP is right, which also makes me wonder that they jumped the gun in terms of the rev share and all of that. I mean, they spent already probably a couple $100 million, if not more, on paying these dividends. And I think what's really interesting is that when you look at where this money goes, it went to people who were already on Fortnite creative. And so it's almost like there is little incentivization that was generated for new creators to come into the platform. I think many creators came into the platform, many, many more. But it seems like the people who made the money are people who are already there and were already bought into the vision of Fortnite creative. So that's another interesting piece. Maybe we actually continue the momentum on Fortnite creative and already talk about what do we think is going to happen, and what do we believe folks, if they're game developer or brands, what do we think folks should keep in mind for 2024 when it comes to UEFN?
I mean, number one, we need to see if all of these non-Fortnite VR experiences are successful, because, Epic as a company has made 3 successful games in its history. Unreal Tournament, you can call that successful. Obviously, Gears of War as a franchise, extremely successful, right? It's a second-party studio. And then Fortnite Battle Royale, after several iterations of launching and retooling what Fortnite was, right? And so, it's clear that aside from 3 games over 30 years, or 3 game franchises over 30 years, they haven't been super successful outside of that. The engine is world class and it's adopted by many, but that's never going to make a ton of money for them to live up to their metaverse expectations, nor the valuations associated with that. So what they're doing with Lego is a great example. I mean, aside from the fact that Lego invested $1 billion of equity to get, a couple tens of millions of dollars of development done for them. It's something like that is going to be extremely important to the future of Fortnite as a platform, as opposed to Fortnite as a game. The future of, without listing a menu of tools, but as you mentioned, literally saving progress inside of, UEFN games, right? Simple things that make tons of sense, but just aren't there or weren't there at launch and are on the list of features to be added. These are table stakes to make it successful. And it's how quickly can they narrow the feature set gap to what Roblox does. Obviously, Roblox, it's a lower fidelity engine. It's a lower fidelity graphics experience. But, this is what we talked many years ago with the chief business officer, right? Is they're not optimizing for high fidelity graphics, they're optimizing for scale. And, that's the trade-off, right? And so, I think it's going to be very interesting to see what they do this year. I don't know where it's going. I think the company's at a very big inflection point in terms of, you kind of read it in the letter when they did the layoffs. It was like, this needs to work, or they need to cut down just to Fortnite and go back to being a games company.
I would make the prediction or assessment for next year that on the back of UEFN and Fortnite launching Lego Fortnite, it seems to me that a really great narrative for the company, and again, obviously none of us know, and I might be wrong. I'm just, if I'm in Epic's shoes and I look at Lego Fortnite, which is here, and I look at UEFN as a UGC platform, which is here, right? And I put Lego Fortnite alongside kind of the Fortnite Battle Royale in terms of effort. It seems to me that Epic actually has an opportunity to build on what they're doing with Lego and actually position Fortnite not necessarily yet as a UGC platform, but actually as a platform that enables them to continue and build second party games at a way rapid, much more rapid pace than building on Unreal Engine. So cheaper and high quality, and by that bring many more top IP into the Epic ecosystem, but doing it in a partnership mode built in Fortnite, which will mean they can do it for, let's say, $25 million instead of $250 million. And through that, onboard many more IP owners and brands into, kind of AAA quality of virtual of game worlds. That seems like a really interesting business direction that I wonder if they are considering. But that's kind of my bet for 2024 is that there will be an opportunity, and it may well be that Epic will realize that a bigger, more company fit strategy is to do more of those high quality premium second party games instead of opening up to a marketplace of third party developers that are coming in and competing against Roblox, which may well be something they continue to pursue. But the reality, Matthew, is it's going to take them 5 to 10 years. Roblox has been building and perfecting, and we're going to talk about Roblox in a second, about all the innovation they brought up this year. But that's at least where my mind is at when I think about Fortnite. I do expect there will continue to be experiment and bets made by developers and brands because the genie is out of the bottle. People are now bought into the vision of UEFN as a Roblox competitor. And I think there is, money to be made. So I think it will continue to drive attention. But I think what we will notice is that a lot of brands and IP owners are either going to just walk away from Fortnite altogether or will focus on bigger efforts in building this kind of Lego Fortnite type of games.
I will wrap it up and say, I think Lego needs to be successful as kind of like a proof of concept that they can do this second party, effectively contract work. But also remember that Lego is one of the brands that's going to be most not susceptible is the wrong word, but most interested in this type of, investment, right? Because they have a huge games business to begin with. I mean, Lego Star Wars is still some of the best Star Wars video games ever made, right? And so they are used to making games with their IP. That's it's one thing to go to a marketing department and do a brand integration or even a brand experience on Roblox where the ask is measured in thousands. When you're going to the average, marketing department and asking them to invest 10, 20, 30 million dollars, that needs to go to the C-suite. And so, this will come into the Roblox discussion because I want to talk about moving the goalposts on metrics. You can't just justify that level of investment with, a branding exercise and eyeballs, right? You need tangible results. And so, to shift it to Roblox, what they're doing with e-commerce next year in helping companies drive real world value and real world transactions for real world goods, that moves the goalposts, right? In terms of the potential investment level for companies, because before you can make a really cool experience, but it's a branding exercise. It's no different than a TV commercial or a billboard in that sense. And there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not downplaying the impact of that, but the level of investment you're going to put towards that is significantly different than if you're thinking about Roblox as a social network, just like you would with, Facebook, Instagram ads, and you can measure conversion ratios to e-commerce real world sales. The investment that you can put behind that, if the conversions are good and the engagement is good, is much more significant than just a branding exercise.
100%, and I think that is a very big distinction at the moment that becomes very clear, I believe, to brands, is the distinction between what they can do on Fortnite Creative and what they can do and achieve on Roblox, unless they go and strike a partnership similar to Lego, where they actually build a game world second party. Because if you look at Lego Fortnite, by the way, this is not something that a brand can come into Fortnite Creative today and do on their own. Like, you need Epic to build it with you, because Fortnite Creative, UEFN, does not have the functionality that Lego Fortnite has. And I think, again, that's another interesting thing, Matthew, which is if you look at Epic, they obviously have invested an incredible amount of resources in building this Lego Fortnite. And I just have to ask the question, which is, where these resources were supposed to be allocated to build UEFN and make UEFN more attractive to developers? Because I think doing these two things at the same time, I think it's going to be almost impossible for any company, let alone a company that, although generates billions of dollars of revenue, it's still relatively small in comparison to other major technology companies in the space. And so I just think that bottom line is 2024 is the year that Epic Games needs to pick a lane on how they want to take advantage of their infrastructure with UEFN and Fortnite. Are they going to go all in on UGC platform, or are they going to continue and build second-party assets like they do with Lego? Doing both at the same time, I think, is going to be incredibly challenging, which ultimately may lead to not be succeeding at all in either of them, and definitely not being able to truly compete with Roblox anytime soon. So, great segue to Roblox. Let's talk about Roblox. As you're well aware of my bullishness on the platform and my excitement. And I want to start by saying that I started 2023 with a lot of excitement and belief in Roblox. I'm finishing 10 times more excited because of the numbers that we're seeing, right? Roblox is going to finish the year already in Q3, 70 million daily active users. As you've mentioned, continuing to spend 2.5 hours a day on the platform. 57% in Q3 of the daily active user base is above age 13, highest the platform has ever had. Fastest growing age group is 17 to 25. Global, right? 200 countries where user bases are, pretty equal distribution across North America, Europe, Asia Pacific, and rest of the world. But no less important and even more interesting, incredible innovations that are coming out across their UGC marketplace, developer tools, generative AI, the Roblox Connect phone, which is creating a bit of a friction in the community in terms of who likes it and who doesn't, and of course the advertising business. And so Dave Baszucki, Matthew, in the latest Investor Day, he kind of really outlined where Roblox is going with regards to its economy, right? He said what we've built over the past 15 years is a virtual economy. Now we've announced and are building an advertising economy. And then they want to move into a shopping economy, right? And they're going to have all of those three buckets: virtual economy, advertising economy, shopping economy, connecting virtual with advertising money, and also with real world commerce. That is incredibly ambitious, puts Roblox in a whole new different trajectory that we thought about. And so let's just start with, what's your point of view on those economies that Roblox is building, and how do you think it's going to change the scale they can reach, the attractiveness to creators and to brands?
I think the virtual economy is still really strong and still a good core base. Advertising is interesting, particularly when we have to see how they build it, right? If it's more portals, like, that's not exciting to me, honestly. What's exciting to me, if they really
Why
start
is that,
to build,
by the way? Why it's not exciting for you?
So much of Roblox is, at least a large portion with subscriptions, is shifting towards engagement-based payouts. Both, they have the premium subscription, they've talked for years for inexperienced subscriptions, right? If you want to reward people for engagement, you can't also reward them for sending people away from your experience. Like, I think those are at odds, and I don't think that makes a ton of sense, long term. Those are just competing goals, and I think that's going to be conflicting for people that want to invest in that, right? I think what's valuable for me is, you look at the platform holistically and you think about advertising as a means for user acquisition. You think about it as a means for promotion of experiences. You think it as a means to do, IP integrations, making that more, software based, making that more programmatic, building tools that mobile game developers are experienced with, right? All these things is what makes the mobile game market $100 billion a year. The global game market is like 200, right? So mobile's a large portion of that, right? They need these tools to understand the level of investment they need to scale. If you want to start bringing more and more professional developer organizations into the platform and continuing to make it more professionalized and having these larger investment experiences, which are starting to proliferate, right? You're seeing more brands put more dollars behind experiences, more creators, come together with larger organizations to take that to the next level and to start to really attract developers from mobile gaming into Roblox as a platform, you need tools that they're familiar with, but also tools that they can use to understand the ROI of investments, right? How much do I need to invest to build it? How much do I need to invest to acquire users? What's the LTV of those users? What's my, 70 day or whatever, 75 day, 125 day, 200 day, ROI on that. I need to understand these metrics, and you need the technology on the advertising side backing that to give me confidence to do that. So I think for me, it's not just little activations, portal type things. It needs to be a more holistic technological approach to advertising. That would get me really excited.
Yeah, and I think it's really interesting that they're launching these video ads now, right? Which I think is going to be a much more likely compelling thing than the immersive ads, because the challenge with the immersive ads also, in order to advertise for a portal, you need to have something to portal into. So it only makes sense that you advertise if you have an experience. So you need to build the experience, and then the advertising is essentially to portal people to your experience. So it's really immersive ads is a user acquisition technology, while video ads that you can just pop wherever, that is really more advertising, which I think is why Roblox is so excited about it. And I think it's going to be more scalable. I do think immersive ads will be continuing to be relevant, but to your point, that's not the big advertising economy story that probably Roblox wants to tell, which is why the video ads are, I believe, are going to be way more impactful for advertisers, and also don't necessarily mean you need to build an experience. So the immersive ads will continue to be important as part of a marketing mix and user acquisition funnel to drive people to your experience as a brand or as an IP owner, or as the ecosystem grows, other developers who can invest in UA through portal ads. But definitely the video ads and the other ads product that they're building is going to be much more impactful for an advertising economy. And also, of course, sharing that revenue with developers, which is amazing. And, it's almost like, imagine when you had a Facebook page, Facebook would have given you a piece of the revenue generated from advertising. That never happened. But this is really what Roblox is doing, which I think is really unique and no one really talks about it. I think it's incredibly meaningful and innovative that you have a company like Roblox that is giving a piece of the pie through the ads to the developers, where the ads, because they don't have to do it. Now they're doing it because they also allow you as a developer to decide if you even want to have these ads populated into your game. That's another really important piece, which is Roblox continues to empower developers to decide how they want to navigate their business and games on the platform. So there's incredible level of autonomy, incredible level of respect to the creator community, which I think, again, is just so unique to Roblox's DNA as an organization and as a platform, that I think continues to cement their position as a category leader and an innovator, and cement their leadership in the space in general. And why it gives me confidence that this is the very best platform at the moment, and probably for the next few years to play on.
Yeah, I think just dovetailing with that, and this does tie to e-commerce, right? Advertising absolutely dovetails to it. And going back to the technology side of the advertising, you need that layer. Just think about if you're a company advertising with Google or Facebook right now, right? You're literally just saying, I'm going to spend this much per install or per impression, and this is going to be my, conversion ratio. This is the number of impressions I'm going to get. This is the value. This is where they are. You literally know that as soon as you click the button and say, I'm going to spend $1,000 against this. This is the reach I'm going to get within a relatively narrow margin of error. You need that if you want to make, from a platform perspective, this impactful for companies, because again, now you're shifting from the branding opportunity to driving real world conversion value, right? If I'm a company that wants to build an experience and then use that to drive e-commerce sales on my website, I need to know exactly how much I'm going to spend and what the conversion ratios are going to look like to make that work. You're not going to have that day one, but as the platform matures, you're going to need that technological background to make these companies comfortable with the level of investment and to scale that investment. And, that's why for me, I think the user facing side is interesting and we'll get there, but I need to see them really build these core technologies to become more competitive with social networking peers and not just what gaming companies have.
100%. And look, I mean, as you're well aware, Matthew, my big excitement about Roblox and in general the 3D internet hypothesis is really goes way, way beyond gaming. I think gaming is a category within the remit of what's going to happen on the internet. And I think it will continue to be huge in the hundreds of billions of dollars of market. I think what is really happening though on Roblox, and I think now over 2 years of having different experiences built across music and brands, and obviously I'm going to insert a lot of the amazing experiences we built with partners like Walmart and Gucci and Elf Cosmetics and NARS Cosmetics and so on and so forth. And many others that are built by other stakeholders and studios on the platform that I think are incredibly impressive. All of that shows that brands are not walking away. I continue to see incredible momentum for brands coming in. I continue to see incredible excitement and appetite from brands to connect with these next generation metaverse communities. I continue to see brand learning and becoming more sophisticated on how they can bring their brands to life, sometimes integrating into existing games, sometimes building their own experiences, sometimes just going for a virtual collection of avatar merchandise and opening a shop and so on and so forth. And what I expect to see happening in 2024 is the funnel of how brands and IP owners coming into the platform continues to widen and widen further. It started with very much I need to build my own game. And I think we're going to see even more modalities of how brands can come in, from an event to time-based experience to a persistent world to an actual game to integrating into an existing game that someone else has built to the advertising product, anywhere from the video ads to other things that we're going to see. And so what I'm really seeing with Roblox, and that is kind of my message to folks who are listening to this episode who are more from the brand side and IP owners, there's no bigger platform when it comes to 3D social platforms on the web today. And the opportunity of how to engage and what to build is only becoming more interesting, both across what can be built and also across different levels of investment. To your point, though, I think where Roblox really need to step up their game is in making sure that there is an expanded technical infrastructure that allows studios and companies like Super Social to build even more functionality into the world that can connect into the real world economies that these brands are building, which leads me to get your perspective and POV on the major announcement that Roblox had in the Investor Day, which I think is a big highlight for 2023 and something to watch for in 2024, which is the real world commerce integration that they said they're going to start in beta second half of 2024 with the idea to roll it out on the platform in 2025. So what does that mean to in your mind, Matthew?
I mean, I laid it out. This is going to move the goalpost. This is going to change the type of conversations that companies like Super Social and other, third-party studios that are building these experiences are going to have with brands. Because again, a branding experience, very valuable, right? But you're only going to put so much money behind that because you're still trying to figure out exactly what the impact of that investment is. And it's you're indirectly trying to measure it. There's no super real way to say I spend X dollars on my experience and I get Y people to buy stuff from me, right? It's, and as much as we understand that, when you think about a C-suite and a board level, they look at a spreadsheet and they want to see results and conversions. When you start to now give them the opportunity to have conversions to their core business, this is no longer just a branding exercise. This is user acquisition. This is performance marketing. They can measure the conversion rates from a Roblox experience to e-commerce sales. That's extremely valuable. If those conversions are good, this becomes a huge profitable funnel for them to invest and build direct relationships with consumers in a burgeoning platform and drive real profitable results from that they can directly measure. So again, you're moving the goalpost, not just in terms of level of investment, but where those conversations are occurring, right? I mean, I think a company that's building a Roblox experience is probably handled by the marketing department. They're putting, again, something measured in the thousands of dollars behind it. If you can prove that this is a real avenue to drive significant growth in e-commerce sales for lots of companies, this becomes a C-suite discussion. This is a chief revenue officer discussion. This is no longer just a branding discussion. And the amount of dollars behind that, but also the level of engagement of executives at companies behind that goes up exponentially.
Yeah, I think the bottom line, I agree, and it's pretty transformative, which is if Roblox gets to a place where it can truly move the needle on the core business of brands, we're talking about a whole different ballgame in orders of magnitude larger than any analyst on Wall Street expects. Obviously, the jury is still out there. They haven't even launched yet, even a prototype of what that integration could look like. But obviously, we and others are working with consumer brands. Some of them, the world's largest companies. Some of them, the world's largest brands in their categories. And their first question always is, how can I connect my experience to my e-commerce? How can I convert users into becoming ambassadors or get them into my loyalty program? Because I sell consumer products. I sell anywhere from a fashion item to a cosmetics product to a product on a shelf. And so, to your point, unlocking that connectivity to real world commerce is going to be huge. So I'm incredibly curious to see what Roblox exactly brings. And I also know that Roblox is going to find a way of how to make sure that developers on the platform, big and small, are going to benefit from the economy that they're creating around shopping, real world shopping. So this is a huge transformation for what Roblox can help accomplish just as a platform for creators, for brands, for the platform itself. Because you can imagine if Roblox become a gateway to e-commerce shopping for a growing generation, Alpha and Gen Z, in tunes of 70 to 100 and more million daily active users, we're talking about multi-billion-dollar economy.
Yeah, I mean, if you're purely talking about like their commission rate, effectively, like you're talking basis points of GMV. Like so. The numbers need to get very large for that to be interesting. But if you now also tie in the advertising and you can build a significant advertising business, plus or minus Amazon's ad revenue is like 2.5% of shopping GMV, right? So if you can drive significant growth in shopping value, gross merchandise value off the Roblox platform, you can get some commission fees just by being the platform, but you can also get advertising associated with that, people spending against that to drive conversions. You're talking 3-4% of GMV. You could, maybe even 5. I think Shopee in Southeast Asia was there when it launched, right? You're looking at kind of low mid-single digit percentage take rates on GMV. If that scales, that again, as you mentioned, that's not baked into any estimates of the sell side. That's really exciting. That's a huge call option for the business.
So we covered a lot of ground on Fortnite. We covered a lot of ground on Roblox. Let's switch gears and talk about the other big story of the year, which is AI. And it has so many relevant points to discuss. But when we think about specifically on the evolution of the internet to a 3D real-time enabled internet, what are some of the key fundamentals where you believe AI is going to help us push the space forward and accelerate the realization of a real-time 3D internet?
So first of all, just to level set with everyone, AI is already doing that, right? It's not generative AI specifically, it's still very nascent, but AI, Roblox uses machine learning to do language localization and translation, right? I mean, I forget the exact statistics, but I think they talked about a few earnings calls ago, like Indonesia, once they started localizing content for the local languages in Indonesia, they saw a huge uptick in DAO growth, right? I mean, every country where they've gone in and localized content, and now they do it with machine learning to automate the process. And eventually you can do that with generative AI if it makes sense, right? Every time you do that, you see that huge hockey stick growth take off in DAO. So it's clear that that's already having a huge impact in terms of how people are engaging with content. And if you think about real-time translation of voice communications or text communications that can be done with generative AI, that's going to really help to increase those flywheel effects of the social connections on the platform. That's extremely valuable, even before you start talking about the content generation capabilities of what generative AI can do for people building virtual worlds, 3D experiences inside the internet. I mean, we're just scratching the surface of what generative AI can do and what it's going to do. but it's clear that AI is already having a profound effect on how people can engage with each other in a 3D internet. And it's going to play a huge role. I remember when we talked with, Rev from NVIDIA about, effectively you have kind of, you have multiple avatars, but let's say when your work avatar, when you're done with actually working, you can have your work avatar, your chatbot, whatever you want to call it, do things for you in the hours that you're sleeping that are, process oriented and automatable. So that way you can be more efficient and get those done in the hours that you're not in front of a screen. I think there's tons of opportunities for what AI can do to be just an efficiency gain for everything, but then also help us populate these worlds both with content and with things to interact with that are human-like, whether they are just bots or they're real people behind them. You're not going to be able to distinguish the difference because they're going to learn our personalities and act like us. And that's, for some people, that's dystopian and they don't like that. But I think that as the internet shifts to adopt these models more as the core of what a 3D internet is, we're going to understand that this is table stakes.
And what excites me really about AI is the fact that we are going to be able to push the boundaries both on productivity, which means savings, right? We can do more, faster, cheaper, more lean, more agile. So there is the productivity piece, which is incredibly valuable to organizations, whatever the process you're pursuing. And then there is the creativity, which is, for me, the generation of value, creating better experiences, more expansive experiences, more interesting experiences. And the intersection of the productivity and the creativity, in my mind, that's the magic of AI, and where I think we're going to see a lot of innovation that I'm excited to, be a part of generating around, a real-time 3D internet, and really figuring out both in the production element of creating 3D worlds and also from the creativity of how do we enable more, and also how do we enable more people to be creative and create things. And that could be an individual or it could be a brand. But I think that intersection of productivity and creativity, that's really the magic of AI, and it's going to change everything.
And I just want to leave it with a snippet from The New Yorker did an excellent long form article. They interviewed Jensen Huang. It was all about the history of NVIDIA. But at the very end, there was a paragraph that I thought was really powerful. Obviously, NVIDIA is everything AI in terms of the chips, that no one competes with them. So this is a snippet from there. As Jensen sees it, image generation AIs will soon be so sophisticated that they'll be able to render 3D dimensional inhabitable worlds and populate them with realistic seeming people. At the same time, language processing AIs will be able to interpret voice commands immediately. As Jensen has said, the programming language of the future will be human. Like, that is just immensely profound, but also powerful in how we're going to think about the ability of humans to interact with digital worlds and how we're going to blend the two of those together with the advancement of these technologies.
The programming language of the future is human. That's a really strong one. I haven't read that one, so I'm going to read it. It sounds like kind of one of those seminal interviews that you're going to want to read again and again over the next decade.
And it's really long, so you probably want to read it in pieces. It took me a couple seatings to get through it.
Well, it's the New Yorker, so yes, it's a long form is an understatement, almost like a passiver read. No, but I think, Matthew, I think that's what's so phenomenal about what is happening now, that we have, AI, we've got this whole conversation of a real-time 3D enabled internet. And I think from our vantage point, right, what you and I talking about, what Super Social is about, what this podcast is about, I hear constantly Into the Metaverse and the Metaverse as, there's more people now who are even more confused about what is the Metaverse. And the more there is confusion, the more I feel like there is an opportunity to bring those pieces together. Because as you and I talked about many, many times on the podcast, it may well be called the internet in the future, and most likely people are just going to keep calling this the internet, and not, if it's a 3D internet, is the metaverse, and then there is a regular internet, which is a 2D internet. Most likely, this whole thing is just going to be the internet. But I think by talking about the emergence of what a metaverse could become, it's more about a statement of the way we think the future is going to look like. And it creates a bit more imaginative conversation on what these technologies can evolve into. And so, I don't really think about the metaverse as necessarily a business category. I think about it more as a statement about the future of the internet as a real-time 3D enabled environment online. And I think that opens such a much bigger conversation, because one of the first things you and I talked about when we met for the first time is, and you then published with Bloomberg Intelligence, that your market mapping, your market sizing for the metaverse, right? And I think it was around $800 billion as a market size of the metaverse. I haven't been a part of Bloomberg Intelligence, and I'm not even remotely as capable as an analyst as you are. But when I think about the future, I think about a real-time 3D internet. And to me, that is a multi-trillion-dollar opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, it all depends on what opportunity set you're looking at. At the time, I was looking at it as an evolution of gaming into kind of social networking, right? That was how I was looking at it. Since then, the opportunity set has gotten much broader than that. I mean, you're talking about upwards of $10 trillion of economic value add from, the metaverse, the continued penetration of the digital economy into the real physical economy. Another definition of the metaverse that I think we've talked about in the past, so this is from Jensen, sticking with NVIDIA, the internet, cloud, everything to now has gotten the digital to be about 10% of global GDP. The metaverse, AI, these next set of trends, big technology advancements is what gets the next 10 percentage points of global GDP to be digital. And that's, we're talking $100 trillion of global GDP plus or minus. So that's $10 trillion right there, right? So, that's how I think about it now. I think about it from a macro top-down perspective as opposed to a singular focus bottom-up. And the opportunity set is massive in that sense.
100%. So let's get a bit more focused and talk about, because there's a lot of other aspects of the 3D internet that we, I think maybe even almost like require a separate conversation, which specifically how we believe real-time 3D is going to impact the enterprise from productivity standpoint, collaboration, and so on and so forth. And then there is how real-time 3D is going to impact industries, factories and things like that. I think a lot of the conversation we had today and what we're talking about 2023 and projecting for 2024 is really focused on, quote unquote, maybe the consumer 3D environment. And so when we think about that, what are the 2 or 3 things you are most excited about for next year, for 2024?
I mean, we hit on a lot of them, right? It's the e-commerce for Roblox, I think is a huge, again, we're moving the goalposts and the types of engagement and investment companies are willing to make on the platform if that's successful. So for me, that's massive. And I don't think it gets enough. I think advertising got a lot of the focus at the investor day, and that's cool. And that's going to be more near term. And I get that. But in terms of moving the goalposts and driving that next significant growth opportunity, e-commerce is massive for me. We talked about Epic ad nauseum. That's another big thing I'm looking at. For Apple, I personally think what they're doing, it all depends on what your expectations are, right? If you thought the Reality Pro is going to be a mass consumer hit device, you're going to be disappointed. This is effectively a device to help developers start building applications and experiences for when they release a consumer product in 2-3 years down the road, there is a suitable base of stuff to do with it. And I think for Apple, this becomes a big question mark of what the future of computing is, right? They reinvented the future of computing with the iPhone and the iOS operating system and the App Store, right? They took us from a PC and laptop centric world to a smartphone centric world that, Nokia tried to do it, but Apple was the one that really showed the way in terms of the platform approach to that. Can they do that again? Can they create the next big computing platform that is some sort of mixed reality device, augmented reality device, not as bulky as this device will be, but future iterations will be smaller, slimmer. I think eventually it looks something like a Google Glass from many years ago, right? Can they make that transition and continue to lead the pack when they do that? That's a huge thing that I think is going to start to play out in the next few years, maybe not exactly in 2024, but over the next few years, that's a massive transition for what the main computing device for humans looks like. Because if headsets remain an accessory to some other computing device, you can't charge, let alone $3,000, you can't charge $1,000 for that, right? You're talking a couple $100 like a game console. But if that becomes the main computing device that powers our interaction with the virtual world, iPhones today cost upwards of $1,000 once you like bulk up the memory, right? So it's like people won't question that level of investment in a device that powerful if that is the main access device for the next internet. And so I think all of this kind of plays together over the next several years, but that's something I'm really watching as well. And then lastly, before I'll let you jump in, what the heck happens to Unity? We didn't talk about Unity yet on this podcast. Engine-wise, they are powerful. So many people use the Unity engine, both for gaming, but also for digital twins and the metaverse type stuff. But they fired JR. They brought in Jim Whitehead, who is from Red Hat, so like has no experience in gaming and metaverse, right? He seems like a mercenary CEO. He's already started gutting stuff and cutting costs and laying people off. I think they're getting ready to sell this thing. So does this remain an independent company? What does that mean for their ambitions with digital twins in the metaverse? This all becomes a big question mark as we enter next year. Again, I think the company gets sold. Microsoft makes the most sense to buy them, but we'll see what happens.
A lot to unpack and digest. I will not only echo what you're saying, but I would focus on three things for 2024 that I would love our listeners to take away. One, Roblox will reach by end of next year, will cross 100 million daily active users, I believe, by end of next year. And more than that, on the back of that number and on the back of the real world commerce integration, Roblox will become an actual conversation at a C-suite level for the first time. Because I think at the moment it's a marketing department conversation. I think Roblox in 2024 will be for the first time a real topic on the table of C-suite executive in Fortune 500 companies. So that's my number one. It's kind of in between a prediction and a wishful thinking, right? The second one, UEFN and Fortnite Creative does not live to the expectation of the creator community. And we will see, in my mind, Epic doubling down on more Lego Fortnite branded games that are built on top of Fortnite, but are not creator-led. They are big brands-led. That's my second one. My third one is we're going to be surprised by the level of success that Apple's Vision Pro launch achieves. So I'm kind of building on what you said, Matthew, and I'm being optimistic. I think millions of people will not be deterred by $3,500 price tag once they get the chance to taste what I've heard only so far that is an absolutely unheard of user experience that no one has built before. So that's my number three. My number four is that the conversation around AI will quiet down and we're going to start seeing more real building use cases around how AI actually helps enable the evolution of a real-time 3D internet. And then number five, there will be a growing conversation, I believe, of how games like Grand Theft Auto, The Sims, and that type of games, and there aren't many, but there's a few, so I'm calling out those specifically, they are going to join the conversation of how do you go from a game to a potentially a UGC platforms, because I think many more are going to try and continue to build something that can resemble to some extent Roblox, but I don't believe it's going to be possible anytime soon. So I think we're going to hear more about it, but I don't think we're going to see much about it. And Roblox will continue to really set the stage and cement their category leadership for at least the next several years. And so these are kind of the 4 or 5 things that I see happening next year.
Yeah, I'm with you on these these large social gaming platforms elevating themselves to becoming more what we expect the metaverse to be, right? And I would throw Assassin's Creed Infinity potentially, what Ubisoft's doing, what Call of Duty is, pan media, pan platform, what that evolves to, right? Especially under the auspices of Microsoft now. All of these large IPs in the gaming world conceivably can elevate themselves to that level with the right level of investment, given how popular they are and the types of user bases they attract. So that's definitely something that I'm watching. I've been watching for several years. Although we don't know much about it, this Infinity strategy from Assassin's Creed at Ubisoft, I mean, they can't execute on anything, so I doubt they will successfully execute the vision, but the vision of it is enticing. It's almost, it's a bunch of connected worlds with a core central area that is a social hub that connects to all these different Assassin's Creed experiences. That sounds like a metaverse-y thing to me, but we'll see what it looks like. We'll see how successful it is over the next several years. I think the most important thing that I just continue to take away is you can't expect revolutionary things in 1 year next year. A lot of this is going to be evolutionary. There are some big things coming, but a lot of this is an evolutionary step towards this end goal that is still several years away. That is not a bad thing. That is just a fact of the matter, that the technology to have millions of people, all in a virtual world together at the same time just doesn't exist yet, right? And we just need to keep building the core technology to let us get there.
And that is happening, that technology growing up is happening alongside the user aging up. And I think that's the one thing that, I think we share a kind of clear understanding of just where we are in the evolution. A real-time 3D internet is not happening tomorrow, but a real-time 3D internet that has also a few billion users is not happening tomorrow either, because we talked about the evolution of the demographics. 35, 45 plus people are not going to be the people who populate the 3D real-time internet. It's going to be the under 18-year-old, these couple of billion people under age 18 around the world, and they're just growing up, right? Roblox, 70 million daily active users, about half of them are under 13. We have a long way to go, but this is why, again, I repeat the message where I believe Roblox is a great large-scale prototype or an MVP of what the future of the internet could look like when it reaches a scaled real-time 3D environment. But it is a long journey, so we're not expecting a revolution in 2024. We're expecting continuous, rapid evolution, and let the builders build, and this is what we're excited about. Right on. Well, we left a bunch of stuff out. We didn't talk about industrial metaverse. We didn't talk about enterprise metaverse. And we also didn't talk about Web3. And so, these are a bunch of things that we probably going to get to as we kick off 2024, because I think they are really exciting. We didn't talk about the Omniverse from NVIDIA, which is kind of a hobby project for Jensen Huang. But the last time he had a hobby project now made them $1 trillion company. So I listen when Jensen speaks. I recommend everyone go to read the New Yorker interview with Jensen Huang. But in the meantime, I want to finish with the personal announcement that we promised you all about Matthew. And I'm going to just say what it is, and then I'll let Matthew kind of chime in. But I'm personally incredibly excited to reunite with Matthew, not only on the podcast, but more importantly, Matthew is going to be joining Super Social as Director of Business Development, working very closely with me and the team on really cementing Super Social's positioning as the premier partner to the world's greatest brands who want to enter platforms like Roblox and beyond, and working closely with me on really positioning us for rapid future growth as we are bringing to life the real-time 3D internet on Roblox and beyond. So, Matthew, I'm super pumped to welcome you to the team. Anything you want to add?
I'm super excited. I mean, everything we talked about in this podcast and we're going to continue to hammer on about is, I think although this is evolutionary, I think we're at a key inflection point. I've said it numerous times today, where with companies, with brands, we can really start moving the goalposts in the types of conversations and where those conversations occur inside of companies. And that's, as you mentioned, the prediction. We're going to have conversations at the C-suite that talk about a Roblox strategy for the first time. This is moving the goalposts and shifting the opportunity set to a whole nother level than where it's been. And I'm super excited to be a part of that.
Let's finish on this wonderful note. We want to wish everyone a safe, happy holiday break. Read, watch films, enjoy. Of course, give 5-star to the podcast, Into the Metaverse. Like it, share this episode with your friends, suggest topics you want us to cover in 2024. And until we see you in 2024, have a great break. And thank you for being such a great community.
Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode of Into the Metaverse. We hope you learned a lot and explored new aspects of the metaverse.